Good morning, folks. This is Mr. Dan coming to you from the Landscape Design Classroom, and I am here to talk to you about using native plants. The main idea here is how can native plants be used in the urban landscapes? So if you take a look at the picture here on the right, you see a tree outside of a business. Most likely this tree, or the sycamore tree here, is somewhere in an urban setting or in a town. So what is a native plant? Some suggestions here. A plant growing wild when scientists began studying and collecting plants in an area. One existing in an area of the United States before European settlement. And those from North America, the United States, a particular region, a given state, or even a specific county or town. So native plants were originated here, not somewhere else. So if it was a plant that was produced in Asia and brought over, that's not native. So if it was a plant such as like the pin oak here in Pennsylvania, that would be a native plant. So defining native plant for this lesson, this is one originating in or characteristic of a particular region or country. So the idea is more complex than this simple statement. Native plants include wildflowers. You can learn more of those from guidebooks. May also be trees, grasses, vines, shrubs, aquatic plants, or others, and then adapted to many conditions: deserts, swamps, forests, prairies, high and low elevation, varying moisture levels, and many different soil types. So we have a lot of different native plants here in Pennsylvania, so we'll be talking about those in class really specifically. So why use native plants? Native plants are survivors. They're adapted to local temperatures, rainfall, and soils, able to grow and reproduce without outside help, and often drought resistant. So plants that originated here are meant to be here. So sometimes it's hard to bring a plant from a different area into our area in Pennsylvania. You can't really grow a palm tree up here, but if you did bring something in from outside of our native range, typically plants from Asia grow pretty well here. The native plants promote biodiversity and sustainability. So biodiversity is a short for biological diversity, the variety of living things in an ecosystem. Natives provide food, cover, and nesting areas. Sustainability, which is managing resources so they will be preserved for future citizens. And natives are adapted to local conditions. So why is native always best? Well, not necessarily. Native plants may not be as spectacular, showy, or perfect. Cultivated varieties are often available in many more sizes or colors. So it all depends on what you're looking for, especially whenever you're doing design. So make sure you choose all plants, whether native or cultivated, for hardiness, size, and bloom time. So as I always say, with anything and everything, make sure you read the label on a plant or the description of a plant and find out if it's meant for this area. So more considerations: growing conditions, temperature, soil type, available sunlight and available moisture. Considerations: sun and shade areas, type of soil, drainage, overhead power lines, property lines, slope, erosion concerns, and shade for woodland plants, sun for prairie plants. Special soil conditions for some native plants. So other things to consider: city landscaping rules, neighborhood landscaping preferences, avoiding poisonous or aggressive native plants such as the poison ivy on the right here, and a weed is a plant out of place. So if you have plants that are growing where they shouldn't be, technically that's considered a weed. Going back to city landscaping rules, whenever you get into cities, there is a lot of zoning and regulations on what you can plant. Some plants will grow too much and get too big too quickly, and then ultimately have to be ripped out. So they put rules in place to make sure things like that doesn't happen. So what's the plan? Choosing landscape plants, what order to choose: trees first, shrubs next, and then herbaceous plants last. So you want to build a hierarchy with your trees in the back, shrubs in front of it, and then herbaceous plants in the very front. So look for growing habit, how tall and wide they get, and then look for year-round color and interest. So don't what the biggest mistake I see here is when people design spaces, they only design for the spring and summer months. But you also want to remember that you want to have good fall color in there, and you want to have some green over the winter, so always include some evergreens. So ways to use native plants: use a traditional landscaping plan, but substitute native plants. Go for a more wild look with levels of understory and group plants as they grow in the wild. Recreate the habitat present before landscaping and building began. And it is okay, going back to that point, to if you have a plan in place and it's not going to affect a specific area, just leave it sometimes, because that area will probably be good to go. So moving on, consider both beauty and function. A harmonious overall design and with some useful functions. So shade trees to reduce air conditioning costs, habitat for insects, birds, and animals, rain garden to filter runoff and minimize erosion, vegetable and herb garden, and where to find native trees and plants, some possible sources, nurseries, nature centers, conservation districts, extension department sales, and internet searches. In today's day and age, you can use the internet to pretty much find anything. So just make sure you're always getting yourself a good deal and you're not overspending. So some cautions here. Do not dig plants from the wild. That may be illegal, especially if the plants are endangered. You must have landowner's permission before removing plants from private property. So don't just like roll up on somebody's house and take some stuff. That's not going to be cool. So the bottom line here, native plants are adapted to local conditions, so they may be easier to grow. Consider hardiness zones, hardiness, size, bloom time, and color when selecting native plants, just as you would when choosing any plant for a particular setting. So that is the end of my presentation here on using native plants. If you have any questions, you can give me a call down here in the Landscape Design Classroom or shoot me a message. I appreciate your time, folks, and have a great day.